All right, yesterday morning was one for the books. And this morning, when I woke up and I started thinking about what happened yesterday, it reminded me that I am surrounded by grown men with autism. And it's everywhere in the tech field. Shortly after I got to work, I got a call from the lady that handles all of the building facilities stuff for the entire corporation. And very quickly, she said to me, "Your boss runs around like a chicken with its head chopped off. He never has time to do anything. He's always on high alert. He just doesn't seem to know what he's doing." And this lady is very nice normally. And when she said that to me, I was just like, okay, well, there's a picture that no one's painted of my boss in a long time. And I was being told this by this person. I hang up with her after giving the president of the office building a bill for $50,000 that he didn't want to pay. And I walked in, I sat down at my office, and I got another phone call about another autistic situation. She was furious about this guy who had been badgering her employees and her for months about the way that they use their computers. And the first thing she does is she yells into the phone and she says, "Millennials team, who's this guy's boss?" And I'm like, "You know who it is. The guy above me. That's his boss. That's who hired him." And she's like, "What gives him the right to treat my employees the way that he does? Belittling them, calling up and tormenting them about computer use." And I'm like, this isn't me. This guy has a reputation for having the personality of a lead brick. He's coarse, he's abrasive, he's rude to the nth degree. And these are all things she said to me over the next 10 minutes. I was trying to get her off the phone. I just couldn't. She was mad and she wanted to let someone else know about it. And the last time she called me like this, she had a real problem with one of the guys that works in the support area. They apparently talked. And the second she got off the phone, she called me up and told me she didn't want that guy anywhere near her. Now I was like, oh, God, Lord. What is it with the tech department that makes ordinary people react to them like a rash? And I finally got her off the phone because I had to go work in another office building yesterday. And it was just two phone calls I didn't need to have back to back like that. With that said, let's get into today's monologue. Working in tech feels like a job and more like an unpaid emotional labor. I spend half my day fixing tech issues and the other half managing fragile egos, awkward silences, and passive aggressive emails from grown men who melt down over printer errors. It's like babysitting adults who never learned how to function in a workplace, but somehow got hired because they speak fluent tech. And if you can, and if you happen to be the only person with social skills, congratulations, you're now the team therapist. This is something that the last senior manager would say to me on a daily basis. It's like, you take on way too much of the emotional garbage that goes on here. You're like the only normal person that works here. And I thought, God, if I pass for normal, what does that say about everyone else around me? But it was something that I just got used to. I mean, sometimes I've had support call me having panic attacks. I've had support call me to talk about other people that they don't like. I've had people call me to tell me that certain people were being passive aggressive towards them. We even got to a point where the server group refused to have meetings with the senior manager. Like he straight up told his boss, it's like I'm not talking to that guy anymore. And I was just like, you can do that? You can just decide that there are people that work here that you don't want to talk to and therefore not have to do your job? Man, that takes a big brass pair. Tell you what. you know, some of these people get away with things that you couldn't possibly imagine. One of our leads is a abuser, a substance abuser, a addicted to video games on the clock. I mean, the amount of bad behavior that goes on in a tech department is absolutely unbelievable. But what gets me the most is that all of these autistic grown men have the exact same personalities. They're all very lonely, spend a lot of time looking at anime, and I don't know what to say other than they're not functional. But we live in a world where everyone has to work, even if you're working and living with your parents still. But with that said, let's get into our four talking points, which are all very good, by the way. Most tech departments are full of people who can configure a server blindfolded, but can't make eye contact or handle basic human interactions without spiraling. It's not just awkward, it creates chaos when end users need help or when tensions rise. This is a conversation that I had to have earlier this week. So we have one guy in the entire group that does one particular kind of support. Well, he was out with a really bad COVID for, I don't know, about 3 weeks. By the time he came back, all those people that needed his help had reached a breaking point. In fact, I got that call from the person that's in charge of training the people that use that particular software. And she called me up and she was angry. Why does no one return my emails, my calls, my service requests? What's going on? Why isn't this working? And I told her it's like I would check with the senior manager who's in charge of that group, and then she started writing me back how much she absolutely hated the tech people. No mercy whatsoever. Tech people are the most despised people at any corporation. And you know what? I don't blame people. They aren't the most social people. They aren't the most friendly people. They're strange. They are downright strange. These are the weird kids that you meet in your life that go into these types of jobs. Because in order to become extremely talented at technology, you have to give up most human interactions. You're not going to grow up like normal kids. You're going to spend most of your time sitting behind a screen in a dark room playing with your computer. And those people become non-functional adults with autism. And they can't handle anything small that goes wrong in their environment. In fact, yesterday I was working in a different building and Gen Z kept messaging me on Slack over and over and over again because he couldn't figure something out. He's freaking out over tiny little details that most people wouldn't even think about. And I just kept looking at the messages thinking to myself, what am I going to do with this guy? But the worst part is that they have to interact with normal people, with the HR department, with accounting, with finance, with the cleaning staff, with the business office. No one likes them. And that causes those tensions to rise to a point in which the end user gets really upset. Like yesterday, I had a person come over from another office building to my office and give me hell about how the AV equipment wasn't working. And I'm like, not my department, man. But when you work in tech, every department is your department. Talking point number 2. The workplace coddles eccentricity if you're smart enough. This is my boss with one of the guys that has a severe problem with substances. Like, we all know that the guy's jacked up, but the coddling that goes on, the taking him in under his wing constantly because the guy's absolutely insane. I mean, this is the guy who shows up to work and brings a console with him, or a portable console, and is playing video games on the clock. They tolerate this from these people because they see them as a necessary evil. If you're smart enough, they're going to turn the other way when they look in your office and they see you playing video games. Some of these guys throw tantrums, ghost meetings, or flat out tell management no. No one says a word because they're technical. Imagine a customer service rep acting like that. They'd be gone in a week. This guy that I'm talking about, when he's in my office, I have to tell him to watch it, to watch what you're saying, what you're doing. And about every 2 hours, he sneaks outside to get another shot of you know what, because he goes down. Again, autism, depression, loneliness. These guys, they function on an emotional wavelength that I have never experienced anywhere else. And if it was just this guy, I'd say, you know what? It's just that guy. He's like that. Nope. I've encountered these people in every tech department I've ever worked at my entire life. Bosses, coworkers. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. You meet one of these guys, and the first thing that you understand is that they're really strange. If you meet someone and the first thing they want to talk to you about is Star Trek, I suggest you turn around and run away because I don't know. I mean, I love Star Trek The Next Generation. Absolutely. But when you meet someone that also likes it in a way that's dirty or unfamiliar, yeah, run away. When someone can tell you what their favorite episode is, run away. By the way, mine is The Dying Light. Uh, so I'm not excluding myself. I'm just saying they're all weird. And having to deal with the end users as a liaison between the two weirdos and normals, it is such an awkward place to be in on a daily basis. I get people who come up to me and say, I hate the tech department on a regular basis. And I'm like, you know, they're not so bad. And I'm like, no, yeah, they are really bad. But, you know, what can we do? You know, talking point number 3 starts out, it feels like a social skills rehab center. That's what working in tech feels like for us more normal people. You're not just fixing tech, you're calming grown adults who panic, freeze, explode if they're under pressure. You're half technician, half therapist. No one warns you about the emotional labor in this job. That is so true. I don't know, since I started working at this job, how many phone calls, how many messages I've gotten from people. I even had one lady who was so taken aback by my customer service that she said to me, you know what? I'm calling your boss right now to tell him how pleasant it's been working with you. Because I've never had this experience of working with someone that I actually liked in the tech department. It's always the exact opposite. And I was just like, you better not do that, lady, because my boss doesn't like me at all. And he's made that clear to me over the past 4 months. If he doesn't have to talk to me, he won't. And that means on a daily basis, I might get one Slack message that says, can you do this? And then I don't hear or see him at all. And that's the way that he's chosen to be. Because again, adult autistic children running around everywhere. And you're just kind of like, how do these people keep their jobs? And it has to be the coddling, the eccentric members of people who work in your department. Because otherwise, I have no idea how these people continue to work. I remember I had one guy who called me who was having a panic attack one time, and he's like, Millennial Steam, this is too much work. I can't handle it. And I was just like, you can only do one thing at a time, man. One thing at a time. There are literally hundreds of jobs that we have right now for people to do. And it gets worse and worse every day that they want to do something else, something else, something else. And the end users just have to take it. As that lady called this guy that was tormenting her, it's like, is he the technology police? Is that why he treats us like we just got pulled over for a speeding ticket and then wants to drag us off to the tech jail and, throw us in the hole? I'm like, if that's your experience with the technology people, you don't like them. All right, my final talking point. The social competent ones end up doing all the conflict resolution, all the apologies, all the vibe checks, because the rest of the team is allergic to human feelings. You'll get burned out fast. So, if you're normal in tech, you stand out to anyone. In fact, yesterday, while I was sitting at the other office building, waiting to have some furniture put together by a company that they hired, probably from Craigslist, I needed to wait for them to do this, and it was going to take a long time. I knew it was going to take a long time, but I had to sit there because I had to dismantle it first, all the technology, and then wait for them to build the stuff, and then put it all back together. That's why I was there. While I was sitting there, feeling like my brain was melting out of my ears, I actually got a message from Mella, and Mella came over to my office, and she came up and we sat together for a while, a long while. And we hadn't talked. We hadn't seen each other in like 2 months. In fact, I hadn't gotten a message from her in so long. I thought she got murked at work because she lifts a lot of heavy things at her job as a soda artist. Let's just call it that. But no, she's been really busy. And she decided to come over and we hung out together in the office. And before that, I had been talking to some of the ladies that weren't in the office today, but I talked to them on a regular basis. And we just make small talk all day long. It's like, hey, how's it going? What are you doing? The usual NPC talk. And that's the way that I pass the time. A lot of my days, sometimes I'll have 3, 4, 5 of these conversations going on the side because, I'm not that kind of tech worker. I'm the kind of tech worker that you call to complain about the other tech workers. But at the end of the day, I messaged the admin for the chief of the entire corporation. We were going back and forth messaging all day. I know. Imagine that. Millennial Steam talks to the secretary of the most senior person all day about little things. And of course, my super hottie VP was one of my chats, and we we were talking, and she said to me, "It's like, Millennial Steam, I know why you like coming to my office building. It's not me. It's the free food." And I was like, "You got me." It's the free food. Anyhow, I don't know where I want to go with this. Actually, let me see if I can undo parts of this and get back to what I actually wrote this morning when I woke up. So when I create these things, here it is. So this is what I'm going to write. This is what I wrote into into ChatGPT, and what you just heard was the script that it generated. But this was my prompt to it. So yesterday, about 10 minutes of being at work, I had an end user call me and scream at me because she thought that the technical department, was full of a-holes. She thinks that the tech people want to police us and treat us like children. So she didn't like that treatment. This is the same guy that told the network guy that he knows nothing about how to do his job. And this is the same guy who, after he was hired as an exempt employee, told the executives that he would not be working more than 40 hours per week. And I thought, wow, all the guys around me are like, that takes an incredible person to say that to the entire corporate, to the top of the corporation. Anyhow, this lady was yelling at me on the phone, calling everyone weirdos. And it reminded me of how strange Gen Z is. All of the people who have autism that work in the tech field with me. The reason why I get along with so many people is I'm not a regular tech person. I didn't grow up like them. So if you guys don't know this about me, I didn't have a computer, or really touch a computer until I was like 23. My mom didn't believe in technology. My family was very much so a bunch of hillbillies. And so when I got to college, I had to start training myself. I had to learn to type because I didn't know how to type. And I got into technology out of necessity. I needed a job. I wasn't one of these people who's going to spend all my free time in the basement on the computer. That just wasn't the type of education that I got in technology. So when it comes to technology and the really hardcore autistic guys that I work with and the way that they feel about their work, I just don't. To me, it's just a trade. I taught myself how to work on these things as a necessary evil because it was the only job at the time that paid more than minimum wage that I could afford to get without spending 4 years earning a degree in it. So that was my area. So I come from a behavioral background. I guess my first degree is in psychology. So I never really understood what I was doing in these departments. You know, I've had a lot of people in other departments ask me if I wanted to go work in a different department. In fact, the president of the office building this week, uh, early in the week, he asked me if I'd be interested in becoming a president of another office because the one uh, at at another location about 100 miles south of this location, the president of that office quit suddenly, and he needed someone to take over. And he said it would be substantially more money, but I would be commuting about an hour and a half each way. And I wasn't interested. But getting back to me, so all of my education is in liberal arts, as I've said many times. So I have a BA in psych, history, archaeology, and English literature. None of those areas are associated with technology. So when I get to a new job and I assess who's working with me, it's very clear to me that all tech departments have a problem with PR because they hire the worst of the worst when it comes to personality traits. I'll tell you right now, none of the office workers in my current building like Gen Z in any conceivable way. They have daggers for him because, as they've said many times to me, he's weird, he's strange, and he's creepy. Well, that's what I've heard my whole life about tech departments. They're all full of the same guys. And since I come from a very different background, as a highly educated person, I look at most of these guys, and some of them did go to ITT Tech and DeVry and some sort of tech schools, but for the vast majority of them, this has just been the way that they've lived, isolated with technology. And so human interactions are as foreign to them as interacting with the end normal person who can't open an Excel spreadsheet is with someone like that, because these people get annoyed by end users, right? If you don't know how to use technology like them, they, how do I put this? They get very, very snooty with you. In fact, that was the interaction that I had with one guy who was supposed to be working with end users, but I think he's on his third or fourth write up from people reporting him to HR for overall bad behavior. And it's not, I wouldn't call it bad. It's just bad human interactions with people because they just don't know how to be human. They've never had to. Anyhow, I decided to do this video because yesterday was a really strange day at work and I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about, but definitely autism in the workplace and technology is there. It's everywhere. It's on the floor, it's on the walls, it's in the air. It's a strange, strange place to find yourself working.